I was just about to step into the expensive restaurant. My daughter-in-law had invited me to an exclusive dinner, and then a call from my lawyer. Leave immediately. Come to my office urgently. You won't believe what I've dug up. I arrived and my world fell apart. Before we continue, I'd like to ask you to like this video. Your support is very important to me. Thank you. And now enjoy the story. My name is Eleanor. I am 70 years old. And just a year ago, I lived with the feeling that I had a family that loved me. Arthur and I had been married for 45 years. And then he was gone, and our house suddenly became too spacious and too quiet. I held on as best I could, telling myself that I had Michael and Amelia, my son and daughter-in-law, and our 2 grandchildren, Mia and Jacob. I thought we would get through it together. How wrong I was. The call with the invitation came on a Tuesday afternoon. Amelia herself called, which was unusual. She had barely spoken to me directly for a long time. Her voice was sickly sweet, as if she had rehearsed every word beforehand. Eleanor, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. You've had a very difficult year. And I want to do something truly warm for you. My heart fluttered. After Arthur's death, I felt as though I had fallen out of their lives. Our weekly family dinners had somehow dissolved. The grandchildren's visits had become rare and short. They always had activities, lessons, clubs. And Michael was always busy, either at work or with household chores. What did you have in mind, Amelia? I tried to ask evenly, not too joyfully. I've booked a table at the Silver Room. You know, the one where the chandeliers look like scattered crystal. We'll have an intimate dinner. We can invite a few friends to make it truly festive. The Silver Room. We had been there only once for their wedding 8 years ago. You had to book a table weeks in advance, and a single dinner there cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Amelia, that's so expensive. Don't you worry about that, she interrupted too quickly. It's our gift. You deserve it, Eleanor. You've been through so much. We want to show you how much we appreciate you. The words were like a bomb, but her voice had that same note, polished like a line from a script. I swallowed my anxiety, deciding I was being paranoid. Grief had dried up my soul and made me sharp to any kindness. When? Saturday at 7. I'll pick you up at 6:30 so you don't have to travel downtown by yourself. The next 3 days passed in a strange, long-forgotten excitement, like before something very important. A mixture of joy and apprehension. I made an appointment at the salon, had my hair trimmed and the gray softened with a hint of color. In a department store, I found a simple dark blue dress with a light pattern, age-appropriate but not dowdy. I called my sister Rita in Charleston to tell her. Finally, she said, it's about time they showed some consideration. And then she suddenly asked, when was the last time you saw the grandchildren? I had to think and was embarrassed by it. For Mia's birthday in March, and only for an hour. Eleanor, that was 4 months ago, Rita replied quietly. A lump formed in my throat, but I pushed the thought away. This dinner is a sign that things are getting better. On Saturday morning it was drizzling. October in New York is often like that, gray and damp. I got ready slowly, put on the dark blue dress, and fastened the string of pearls Arthur had given me for our 40th anniversary. I powdered my face lightly. I hadn't dressed up like this in a long time. At exactly 6:30, a silver Mercedes pulled up smoothly to the curb. Amelia got out with a neat black umbrella, slender in a black cocktail dress that probably cost as much as my pension. Eleanor, you look wonderful tonight, she smiled. And her smile seemed tight-stretched. The dress is perfect. Thank you, Amelia. I'm so glad. We haven't gone out together in so long, I said, and I believed my own voice. On the way, she chattered nonstop about the menu, the tableware, the desserts, how elegant everything would be. But she carefully avoided the question of who exactly would be in our intimate circle. I asked a couple of times and she changed the subject to parking, then to the autumn traffic. The Silver Room was even more magnificent than I remembered. The light from the chandeliers cast warm spots on the snow-white tablecloths. The silver gleamed. A pianist played softly in the corner. Amelia confidently led me to the back, where a round table for 8 was already set. Michael was sitting in a dark suit, handsome, fit, talking to a middle-aged man I didn't know. A neat briefcase stood by the man's chair. "Mom!" Michael stood up and kissed my cheek, too quickly as if checking a box. "You look great." "Thank you, son." Amelia introduced the stranger, Dr. Roman Holloway, an old acquaintance of ours from the medical community. The Wentworths, a couple who were old family friends I had never heard of before, were also there. I was seated at the head of the table, which seemed honorable, but I immediately noticed that it placed me directly across from the doctor, who was staring at me intently, without blinking, and occasionally jotting something down in a notebook. The conversation flowed around me, and I felt like a spectator at my own party. The Wentworths asked how I was coping alone, about my health, how I was doing after my loss. The doctor nodded, writing briefly, dryly. During the appetizers, he turned to me, his tone now completely official. "Eleanor, Michael and Amelia told me that it's been difficult for you since your husband's death. It's natural. Grief affects everyone differently." I glanced at Amelia. She was nodding at him, as if confirming. "It's been hard, I won't deny it," I replied. "But I'm managing." Michael interjected, his voice soft, almost affectionate. "Mom, but you've said yourself that you sometimes mix up dates, forget appointments." My heart skipped a beat. What dates? What appointments? I've lived by a calendar my whole life, and since Arthur's death I write everything down, from my pills to the utility bills. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said quietly. Amelia placed her hand on mine. "Eleanor, it's all right. We're here because we want to help you." And at that moment my phone rang sharply, so loudly that the pianist seemed to stumble on a note. Apologizing, I reached into my bag. I was about to turn it off so as not to disturb them, and I froze. The screen clearly displayed, "Daniel Morrison, attorney." My blood ran cold. I pressed the green button and held the phone to my ear, trying to speak calmly, though my heart was already pounding somewhere in my throat. "Daniel? I'm at the Silver Room with Michael and Amelia." "Eleanor, listen carefully. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Make up an excuse and leave immediately. Come to my office. I've checked something. You won't believe it." His voice wasn't his own. It was hard, restrained, as if he were holding a door against someone trying to break it down. I ended the call and looked up. 8 faces were staring at me, and for the first time I saw them as they were. Not family, not friends, but people whose plan had just been disrupted. "I have to go," I said, getting up, and my chair scraped so loudly that the pianist looked over. "What's the emergency? We haven't even gotten to the main course." Dr. Holloway jumped up, reaching out as if to make me sit back down. But I was already putting on my coat. Amelia grabbed my elbow. Her grip was thin, tenacious. "Eleanor, please stay. This is all for you." "I have to go," I repeated and pulled away. Behind me, Michael's voice snapped, dry and sharp. "Mom, you're being unreasonable. Get back to the table." I didn't turn back. Outside, it smelled of wet stone and gasoline. A taxi pulled up quickly, as if on cue, to the business center on the embankment. "Do you know it?" "I do." I got in, and as the car started to move, I turned back to the glowing windows of the restaurant. At our round table, Amelia was pacing with her phone. Michael was leaning over to the doctor, who was shaking his head. It felt as if I had stepped off a stage where someone else's play was being performed and into the cold corridor of real life. Daniel's office was a lone rectangle of light on the 3rd floor, like a lighthouse. The security guard nodded me through. "To Morrison's. Go on up, they're waiting for you." Daniel's door was ajar. He was finishing a call. "She's left." "Yes, thank you. I have all the documents." Seeing me, he smiled for the first time that evening. Briefly, warmly, like a man who has just been relieved from his post. His tie was loosened. A lock of gray hair had fallen out of his perfect coiffure. I had never seen him like this. "Sit down. Water, tea, coffee. Just tell me what happened. You scared me." He sat down across from me and opened a thick folder. "Eleanor, this is going to be difficult. Brace yourself. Today, I received a call from a Dr. Irene Chan. a geriatric psychiatrist. She specializes in competency evaluations. 2 weeks ago, Amelia approached her with a request for an urgent evaluation of you. She was very insistent. Everything inside me sank. He handed me a sheet of paper. Here's the application. It says you're confusing dates, forgetting appointments, showing suspiciousness and inadequate reactions. The letters were blurry, but I could make out my name and address. What does this even mean, a competency evaluation? In simple terms, the court decides if you can manage your own affairs. If they declare you incompetent, they appoint a guardian. Your home, your money, your medical treatment, where you live, they decide everything. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the armrests of the chair. I'm fine. I'm not confusing anything. I know. And Dr. Chen realized it too, which is why she called me. She was alarmed by the rush and the picture Amelia was painting. Then Amelia asked for the observation to be conducted not in an office, but in public, with witnesses. Specifically tonight at dinner. Dr. Holloway is a psychiatrist who collaborates with her, and the Wentworths were the invited observers. They wanted to provoke you into confusion, tears, a breakdown, in front of specialists. I pressed my lips together. So this dinner was a quasi-commission, then a petition to the court. Guardianship. Quick and quiet. Why? I exhaled. For what reason to humiliate me like this? Daniel opened a second folder. Let's be frank. You have about 45 million in savings. The house is worth about 30. No mortgage. Plus your pension benefits. A guardian manages everything. They can sell your home, move you to a nursing home tomorrow. The money is for your needs, but at their discretion. He paused and added, and this isn't the first episode. 3 years ago, Amelia worked as a companion for an elderly woman, a Mrs. Harrison. The relatives later claimed that Amelia was given access to the papers and the will too quickly. The case didn't go anywhere. The woman died, but it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. I sat and remembered how Amelia had been asking the same questions lately, as if checking if I had remembered what I had said yesterday, how the meetings had become less frequent, how I was seated with other guests, how the grandchildren's visits had become shorter and supervised. And it all fell into place like neat lines in someone else's files. My phone beeped. A message from Amelia. We are very worried about you. Please call. Your departure from dinner has alarmed everyone. I showed the screen to Daniel. He nodded. They're already building the narrative of your irrational behavior. Good. Now what do we do? Tomorrow you will call Amelia and apologize. Calmly, without any drama. Say you were flustered, that you're embarrassed. Let them be convinced that the process is moving forward. So pretend to be weak, show them what they want to see. And in the meantime, we document everything. Here's a small voice recorder with a single switch. Turn it on, put it nearby. Any attempt at pressure, any advice about guardianship, a nursing home, we record it. We don't need to argue, we need to collect. I took the small black box in my palm. It was as light as a button, but the weight of the decision made my chest tighten. I can do it, I said, though somewhere deep inside something resisted. How could I play helpless when I had been the one holding the house and the people around me together my whole life? Daniel looked at me directly. Eleanor, you're not pretending. You're defending yourself. They won't understand any other way. And also, don't be alone at any meeting on their initiative. Either I or one of my associates will be nearby, even if it's just for a cup of tea. We went down in the elevator, and only as the doors were closing did I catch my reflection in the metal panel. The woman who had come here from under the crystal chandeliers, lonely, fawning for a scrap of affection, had been left behind upstairs. I was going down a different woman, collected, with a cold clarity in my head. Outside, the rain had almost stopped. The wet asphalt gleamed like a mirror. I walked to the road and repeated to myself, so as not to get confused, tomorrow at 10:30, a call to Amelia to apologize, to thank her, to agree to coffee at my place, to turn on the recorder. And yes, to call Rita, just to hear a living voice, so my hand won't tremble at the crucial moment. I raised the collar of my coat and for the first time in many months, I felt that my life had a plan again. And at night, lying in the dark and listening to the drops on the windowsill, I suddenly realized that they were counting on my loneliness, on the silence in which any lie sounds like the truth. But I have people. And tomorrow morning at exactly 10:30, I will dial Amelia, and she herself will take the first step into someone else's trap, confident that she is coming to save me. On Sunday morning, I stared for a long time at the tiny black voice recorder on the table, so light like a toy. But the thought that it was now my shield made my palms tingle with a heavy sensation. At 10:30, I dialed Amelia. She picked up almost immediately. Her voice was sympathetic, but underneath it, like a thin wire, was a note of satisfaction. "Eleanor, we were worried about you all night. How are you?" "I'm so embarrassed, Amelia," I said, pausing for a breath as Daniel had taught me. "I was flustered yesterday. I don't even understand what came over me." There was a short silence on the other end, and then that sugary sweetness. "Don't apologize. It's natural. You're all alone in a big house after Arthur's passing. The emotional strain." I carefully steered the conversation where it needed to go. "Sometimes I do get confused. I'll count my pills twice, or go back to the door to check if I've locked it. I left the kettle on the stove yesterday." I winced at my own words, but on the other end I could almost hear her smile. "See? Michael noticed that too. We're very worried about you. That doctor at the table, Dr. Holloway, is he really an acquaintance of yours?" I asked uncertainly. "A very kind man," she replied instantly. "He helps people who are going through difficult transitions. Michael and I thought it would be good for you to talk to a specialist." It was said so smoothly that if I hadn't known the truth, I would have thanked her. "Let's have coffee this week, so I can apologize properly," I suggested. "Of course. On Wednesday at 2 I'll come to your place. It's calmer at home. We'll see how you're feeling." She had set the time and place herself, just as Daniel had predicted. "That works," I said, and we said our goodbyes with the same quiet sweetness. I immediately called Daniel. "She took the bait," he said without any surprise. "On Wednesday, there will be an assessment of your living situation. Pretend you can't handle the paperwork. Leave a couple of dishes in the sink. Let her see disorganization. Just no theatrics. A subtle touch is enough." I sighed. I had never let my house get messy in my life. "I know. This is an exception, not the rule. You're not giving up. You're gathering evidence." Monday and Tuesday, I lived in slow motion. I pulled old scenes from my memory and suddenly saw them differently. How Michael had introduced me to Amelia, her beautiful, even speech. I work as a companion for the elderly. I love their wisdom. How Arthur had said after their first meeting, "She seems like a serious girl, not an empty one." The wedding in that same silver room, the shining chandeliers. Our dance, my sons. "Mom, I'm so happy." And then the small, barely noticeable shifts. Family dinners moved from our table to a place more convenient for everyone. At holidays, we were seated so that the children would be calmer. The visits became shorter, according to a schedule. The conversations were held in front of everyone. And it was as if someone was discreetly tightening a belt around my life, notch by notch. I remember when Arthur was lying weak after chemo, and I asked Michael to come, just to sit with him. "I'll coordinate with Amelia. She manages our calendar." That phrase had burned me then. Now I understood that it wasn't a calendar. It was a barrier. On Tuesday evening, I took out a box of threads and scraps. The habit of tidying up was stronger than me, but I forced myself to stop. I left a couple of receipts on the table. In the kitchen, a plate and a cup. In the hallway, a scarf as if forgotten on a shelf. I memorized every little detail so I could put it back in its place later. In the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and ran my hand over the bedspread. Arthur always said that a house is held together by neatness, like bread by salt. "Forgive me, Art," I whispered. "This is just temporary." On Wednesday morning, the sky hung low and gray, as if someone had laid a damp cloth over it. I checked the recorder in my cardigan pocket again. You turn it on with your thumb, the light blinks and goes out. In the mirror, a calm face, a little pale, my hair deliberately not perfectly styled. On my lips, the most neutral balm. I put the kettle on but didn't turn it on so as not to be tempted to fidget with it. At 10 to 2, I found myself listening to the silence. At 1:30, a schoolboy with a backpack walked past the window, followed by an old woman with a shopping cart. Ordinary life was going on, and only for me at this hour it was like a string stretched to the breaking point. At 2 minutes to 2, I heard the familiar soft hum of an engine in the courtyard. The silver Mercedes parked neatly at the curb. Amelia got out in a light-colored coat, clutching a folder to her chest. She surveyed the house with a long look, from the window to the steps, and only then pressed the doorbell. I put my finger on the recorder switch, heard a short click, took a deeper breath and reached for the doorknob. And below, behind the frosted glass, her eyes were already gleaming. I opened the door on the first short ring, not giving Amelia a chance to press it a second time, so it wouldn't look like I was standing behind the door, pulling myself together. Amelia, hello. Forgive the mess, I was just… Eleanor, don't trouble yourself. I'm just here for a minute. Just wanted to see you to see how you are. She stepped into the hallway carefully, as if into a museum. Her gaze swept over the doormat, the shelf, the scarf I had deliberately left, the specks of dust on the mirror. She unbuttoned her coat unhurriedly, still clutching the folder. Tea? I just brewed some coffee, I think. I led her to the kitchen, feeling the recorder lying quietly in my cardigan pocket. 2 plates and a cup in the sink. On the table, a receipt with a pen between the pages, as if I were confused by it. Amelia's gaze flickered over it, and she smiled gently. You're all alone in such a big house. It's a lot of work, of course. I deliberately shuddered as I was pouring the coffee and spilled a drop on the table. You see, I laughed guiltily. Everything is falling out of my hands. I'm counting my pills too. I can't remember if I've already taken them. That's dangerous. Very serious, she said, already taking out her smartphone and making a note. Then came the questions like from a doctor but with no right to refuse. What time do I get up? How do I take my medicine? Do I forget to pay the electricity bill? Do I go to the clinic alone? Do I still drive? Did I remember recent dates? I answered evenly, sometimes holding my breath, sometimes feigning doubt. Oh no, sometimes I go back to the door to check. Eleanor, have you thought about the future yourself? She asked after a pause, putting down her cup. A big house, the upkeep. Maybe it's time to think about a smaller, easier place? There are wonderful options for seniors. It's not like it used to be. Well kept, convenient. People around. Supervision. I looked out the window. I've thought about it. It's just that Arthur is here. Every corner is ours. I don't know if I can. I understand everything, she quickly assured me. But practicality can't be ignored. Besides, if the cognitive, well, the forgetfulness starts to get worse, they have special departments in such places, very caring, safe, so no one wanders off, gets lost, so there's control. She said it almost affectionately, as if she were talking about a green garden, but a chill ran through me. So no one wanders off. She looked around the table, carefully moved my receipts. Do you pay these yourself? You're not late. I try. Sometimes I get confused, honestly. I forced out a phrase that made me want to wash my hands. Amelia nodded. Michael and I can take this on so you're not burdened. And we'll help with the medication, and with the doctors. She said it as if she were offering me not care, but the keys to a cage. As she was leaving, she hugged me tightly, too tightly. Eleanor, we won't leave you. We're family. A family takes care of its own. A sweet trail of her perfume hung in the hallway, and in that scent was something of a syrup that had been spilled on the floor and not wiped up, cloying and sticky. Let's do this, she said at the door with a businesslike smile. I'll talk to Michael. We'll think about how to make your life easier. Maybe we'll go and look at some places. And by the way, there are some wonderful specialists it would be good to talk to. She called it talking. And in my memory, public observation, witnesses, and nods clicked into place. When the door closed behind her, I leaned my forehead against the cold wood and only then turned off the recorder. The half-drunk cup of coffee was still on the kitchen table, and I caught myself with a childish, awkward thought. To wash everything with soap, to wipe it until it squeaked, to return the old order to the house as it was with Arthur. Instead, I sat at the table and arranged the receipts in stacks. Not to pay them, but just to make sure. I remember, I know I can. I called Daniel, briefly recounted the questions, the memory care unit. The will take care of everything. He listened silently, then said in a low voice, "She's speeding up. This is no longer care. It's preparation for guardianship and placement. It's excellent that you recorded it. From now on, we proceed according to the plan. Any meetings, only with us present. If they start pushing for papers, we stall. Not a single signed sheet." I asked in a whisper as if in church, "How much longer do I have to play at being forgetful?" "Exactly until the moment they push themselves to the edge. They're moving fast." I went to bed late, lying on my back for a long time, looking at the ceiling, listening to the quiet clicking of the radiators and the rare swish of cars on the wet asphalt. I thought about how Amelia was casting her hooks carefully, patiently, confident that the fish was hungry. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't hungry. I have a plan. I have people. I have my own shore. In the silence of the kitchen, among the scattered receipts, my phone vibrated briefly. The screen lit up and I, holding my breath, reached to see who had decided to make the next move. The screen flashed. "Michael." I picked up the phone as if it were a hot pot. "Don't get burned." "Mom? We need to talk seriously about how you're living." My son's voice was businesslike, even as if he were discussing a project with a client. I turned on the recorder with a single movement in my cardigan pocket. "About what exactly, Michael?" "We'll come over today at 4. I'll be with Amelia." "All right," I said and placed the phone on the table so carefully, as if it might explode. For an hour I walked around the house and did something I had never done before. I left things out. 2 plates in the sink, an unfolded towel on the sofa, a newspaper spread open across the coffee table. On the nightstand by my bed, my glasses on an open book. I had to force myself not to straighten it, not to smooth it out, not to wipe it clean. I kept repeating to myself, "This isn't a mess, it's a stage set." I put the kettle on in the kitchen but didn't turn it on. In the hallway, I let a scarf hang accidentally from a shelf. And still in every cell, Arthur's commandment was itching. "A house is order." "Not for long, Art," I whispered. "Forgive me." At exactly 4 o'clock, the car doors clicked shut in the courtyard. I managed to open the door before they knocked. Michael composed, stern. Amelia, with a folder under her arm and a smile whose corners of her eyes didn't work. "Mom, we agreed on 4, he said, as if making a mark. "Oh, Michael, I got mixed up." I sighed, pretending to be surprised myself. In the kitchen, they made themselves at home. Amelia's gaze swept over the plates, the papers, and lingered on a coffee stain on the table. "Eleanor, you're all alone." "It's hard, of course," she said softly, as if pitying a character in a TV series. Michael placed a glossy brochure with pine trees on the table. "Smiles, Bright Halls. The Pine Ridge Nursing Home," he said. "Amelia and I have studied everything. Levels of support, doctors, a schedule. It's beautiful and safe there. It will be easier for you." I took a breath. "It's beautiful, I see. But what about the house?" "Arthur is here." "A house is just walls," Michael cut in. "And you are you. We're thinking about your safety." "But there's another way," I said cautiously. "You could just visit more often, that's all. I don't need much." Michael met my gaze, tired and alien. "Mom, we have children, work, a schedule. We can't be checking every day to see if you've locked the door and turned off the stove." "That's true," Amelia chimed in. "And if the forgetfulness gets worse, they have a department there with 24/7 supervision. No one will wander off, no one will hurt themselves." She said it affectionately, but something inside me clicked. No one will wander off. I turned the brochure over. On the back were neat rates, individual programs, photos of the dining room. "I need to think about it," I said, returning the booklet. Amelia placed another, thinner folder on top of it, a legal one this time. So as not to burden you, we've spoken to a lawyer. There's a tool called guardianship. It's when loving people take on the organization of your life. Finances, doctors, paperwork. Everything will be under control. You won't have to worry about anything. I straightened up. Under whose control? Ours, Michael replied, without blinking for a second. We're family. Isn't it a bit early for guardianship? I asked, trying to keep my voice from trembling. It's early when everything is calm. It's not calm now. Michael started talking faster, as he always does when he's nervous. Amelia was just telling me yesterday that you have dishes piling up. Receipts. You said yourself that you forget if you've locked the door. It happens. I nodded, though a bitter lump was already forming in my throat. See? Amelia chimed in. That's why it's better to get everything formalized in time. We'll do it quickly, without any delays. The court, a piece of paper, and you'll feel better. The court. I repeated. It's a formality, Amelia smiled, as if offering me dessert. I was silent, listening to my own breathing. And what if I say no? I asked then. I'm a grown woman, I have a head on my shoulders. Michael placed his palms on the table and leaned forward. Mom, if a person is incapable of making sound decisions, decisions are made for them. That's how it is. We won't let a tragedy happen. So if I don't agree, you'll go to court yourselves? We'll be forced to, Amelia replied calmly. And that forced to sounded like it had already been decided. I looked at my son. Michael, do you really think this is for my own good? He looked away. Dad would have wanted you to be taken care of. Arthur's name stung more than any threat. Dad would have wanted me to be respected, I said quietly. The pause stretched on. Then Michael stood up, as if to put an end to it. We're not rushing you. Think about it until tomorrow. But we can't delay. There are places. He nodded at the brochure with the pine trees. But they go quickly. And the lawyer can see us in the next few days. Amelia hugged me goodbye too tightly. Her heavy perfume lingered. We'll do everything right. Don't worry. I closed the door behind them and stood for a minute, my forehead against the cold wood. Only then did I turn off the recorder. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water and realized that the glass was trembling in my fingers. I sat down and played back the recording. The quiet rustle, the voices, my short ahas. Michael's will be forced to. I didn't listen to the end. I stopped it at that phrase. I called Daniel. He picked up immediately, as if he had been holding the phone in his hand. Well? They brought a brochure for Pine Ridge, talked about guardianship. Said if I don't agree, they'll go to court. It's all on tape. On the other end, an exhale like a man who has been waiting. Excellent. This is called pressure and intimidation. In guardianship cases, that's a red flag. From now on, no sudden moves. Tomorrow morning you will call Amelia and you will say that you agree, that you want to go and see the nursing home, and are ready to discuss the paperwork. I fell silent. This will reassure them, he continued calmly. Let them rush things themselves, and we'll be where we need to be at the right moment. Believe me, you are no longer on the defensive. I put the phone on the table and sat for a long time, looking at the brochure with the pine trees. The lamp was reflected on the glossy surface, and it looked as if a round, artificial sun was hanging over the trees. I ran my finger along the edge and whispered to myself, all right, tomorrow I agree. And then in the silence, as if on cue, my phone beeped again. A message from an unknown number. Prepare your documents. Time is working against you. I looked up, feeling everything inside me tighten into a knot. It seemed someone else had decided they could run my life. In the morning, I called Amelia first, without any preamble, in an even voice. Amelia, I've thought about it. Perhaps you and Michael are right. I really do need help. On the line for a second, it was so quiet it was as if she had covered the microphone with her hand. And then a stream of soft, enveloping words. Eleanor, that's a wise decision. Michael and I are so happy. I added what she wanted to hear. I want to see Pine Ridge. But not today. Give me 2 days. I can do Monday. Of course. At 2. And we'll talk about the guardianship paperwork too. It's not complicated at all. I paused and then added carefully, "Do I need my lawyer?" "Why?" she replied instantly. "It will only complicate and increase the cost of the process." "We're right here," she said affectionately. But in that affection something grated. "We'll see, Amelia. Until Monday." I immediately called Daniel. "Excellent," he said, his tone unchanged. "Let them believe everything is going according to their script. Monday morning come to me, then we'll see Dr. Chun. We'll document your competency and then the notary. We'll set up an irrevocable trust. For you, a lifetime income. Access to the assets will be closed to any guardians." I took a deep breath. "Is that legal?" "Absolutely. And most importantly, timely." I thought about yesterday's anonymous message with the time threat and decided to let them be the ones to rush. Monday started early. Daniel and I met at his office. He drove me to Dr. Irene Chen's, a private clinic on a quiet street, a bright corridor, pictures of trees on the walls, as if to calm you. Dr. Chun, a woman in her 50s with clear eyes and a calm speech. "Eleanor, I'm sorry you've been put in this situation," she said, as we were just sitting down. "Usually, a family delays an evaluation. But here there's a rush and an insistence. That's usually not about care. Then the tests: memory, attention, arithmetic. Small tasks. Remember words, draw a clock, solve a household dilemma. Explain how I would organize a doctor's visit." I answered calmly, without any fuss, as I had always lived. Everything in its place. 2 hours passed unnoticed. At the end, the doctor took off her glasses, smiled, and said, as if signing a document, "You are fully competent. I will prepare the report today. If necessary, I am ready to confirm this in court." I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Daniel nodded. "Thank you, doctor." We went outside. The sky was bright, autumnal, and for the first time in many weeks, I felt the air smell not of anxiety, but of something ordinary, of wet leaves, of coffee from a nearby window. Next, the notary. A small office, a green lamp, the rustling of papers. Daniel read the key points aloud, marked the signature spots with yellow sticky notes, explained in simple terms. "Here is the list of assets: account, deposit, apartment. Here it says that the management is irrevocable. Here that you receive monthly payments and only you. Here is the procedure for replacing the trustee if necessary. And this is protection against claims and attempts by guardians to dispose of the property." I listened, asked about the interest rates, about the utility bills, about how the payments would be made. He answered patiently, without rushing, and that sticky feeling, as if I were being pushed towards a single right decision, disappeared. When I had signed the last page and the notary had affixed the round seal, I wanted to just sit in silence. I looked at the neat stack of papers and thought that this wasn't paper. This was my right to live as I see fit, and the memory of Arthur and me, put into normal human form. We returned to Daniel's office. He carefully arranged the documents in files. "Dr. Chen's report. The originals are with me. You have the copies. Keep them out of sight at home. Now we watch. This afternoon, Pine Ridge. You look, you listen, you ask naive questions. Let them see that you're pliable. And no more signatures without me." I nodded. "Daniel, what if they're recording something too? And then they'll twist my words to suit them. Let them record. The facts are stronger. And we have your competency report from today. That's your armor." I had a cup of tea in his kitchenette, holding the warm mug in my hands. I hadn't felt such simple, homey warmth in a long time. Then I looked at my watch. It was 1:30. Time to go. Time to go. And remember, you don't owe them anything. You're just looking at a place where your caring relatives are dreaming of sending you. We went down to the lobby. I tucked 2 things into my bag: a copy of the doctor's report and the thin folder with the trust agreement. Outside, there was a steady autumn chill. At the curb, a silver Mercedes pulled up smoothly. Amelia got out, her smile as tight as a new glove. Her gaze immediately went to my hands, to my bag. "Ready, Eleanor? They're waiting for us." The director has a window. I nodded, got in next to her, fastened my seatbelt, and clutched the zipper of my bag. Ahead, behind the pine trees on their brochure, a stranger's stage was waiting for me, with friendly smiles and locked doors. And I was ready to play my part to the end. Pine Ridge turned out to be just as glossy as in their brochure. Neat paths between the pine trees, glass doors, a receptionist with a smiling girl, the smell of vanilla and bleach, a cleanliness with a hint of a hospital. The director, a trim woman in a light-colored blazer, spoke correctly and quickly, as if reading a memorized text. Rooms for independent living, a block for those who require support, and a separate memory care unit. Security, electronic bracelets, card access. Amelia walked beside me, nodding, asking if a doctor was on duty on weekdays, and how quickly they responded to the call button. She peeked into the rooms, her gaze lingering on the glass doors with magnetic locks, the kind that no one gets out of. I was shown a bright dining room, a schedule of clubs, a library corner, a relaxation room with soft armchairs. I asked my naive questions. Can I cook my own oatmeal in the morning? Can my grandchildren stay the night? What about winter walks? Who buys the medication? Where are the keys to the nightstand kept? The director smiled the same smile at everything. By arrangement. Loved ones are always welcome guests. Medication is on a schedule, storage is centralized. We are responsible for safety. When we approached the door to the memory care unit, an employee swiped a card. The door clicked barely audibly, and we were not let in, only shown a neat corridor with closed doors through the glass. Amelia said quietly, as if to herself, "That's right, no access. No one will get lost." I nodded and heard something inside me creak like iron. In the car on the way back, Amelia was talkative and sweet to the point of being cloying. "Isn't it wonderful? You see how much attention, how much activity, and most importantly, how safe it is." I looked out the window at the gray New York day and replied evenly, "It's all very dignified." "Amelia, tell me, if I decide, how does it work? First the nursing home, then the court, or the other way around?" "It's better to arrange the guardianship first," she reported immediately. "Then we'll take care of everything. Moving your things, signing the contracts, paying the bills. You won't have to run around." "And how long does it all take?" "If we don't delay, a couple of weeks. We've already spoken to a lawyer. He has an opening this week. We could meet as early as Friday." She was looking at the road, but I could see out of the corner of my eye a twitch in her cheek. She was smiling to herself. That evening Michael called. "Mom, Amelia said you were pleased. I'm proud of you. Not everyone can admit that they need help." I obediently said, "Yes, son, it's a nice place." "So that's it. We'll arrange the guardianship, and you won't have to think about anything anymore. Amelia and I will take care of everything. Financial management, doctors, daily life, everything." He spoke confidently, as if about a contract. I agreed to his "we'll take care of everything," and I myself felt the thin folder with the documents under my fingers. It was lying on the table, a quiet rebuttal to any of their "we'll take cares." On Wednesday morning I called Amelia. "I've thought some more. Let's have that meeting with your lawyer. If possible, towards the end of the week." "Of course," she replied too quickly. "Friday at 10. I'll send you the address. It's very simple, don't worry." I paused and then added carefully, "I've invited my neighbor Daniel. He's a lawyer. It makes me feel more comfortable." A silence hung on the other end, thick as syrup. Then Amelia forced a smile into her voice. "If it makes you more comfortable, of course. As long as you're comfortable." The word comfortable sounded out of place. On Thursday afternoon, Daniel and I met in his office. On the table already lay a copy of Dr. Chen's report and a neat volume of the trust agreement. "So," he said, handing me a sheet of paper with notes, "at the meeting they will try to do 3 things: get your consent, rush the court as a formality, and steer you away from any clarifications. I, in turn, will ask what they don't like: who controls the spending, is there any accountability, and to whom? Can the guardianship be revoked, and what is the procedure? What about the property, and who is responsible for the transactions?" This is not an attack, it's common sense. They will be uncomfortable. I nodded. And also, Eleanor, remember, we are not proposing anything. We are only asking and listening. The situation will change on its own. We rehearsed like actors before a premiere. Me calm, slightly flustered. Sometimes asking for a simpler explanation, sometimes asking for time to think. Daniel polite, persistent, not raising his voice, just holding a pause where needed. At some point, I caught myself breathing more freely. When you have the words to name someone else's cunning, it loses half its power. In the evening, I sat in the living room for a long time, looking at our house with Arthur, at the shelves, at the photographs, at the porcelain vase with the small blue pattern. Tomorrow felt like an exam. Amelia was sure I would follow the arrows she had put up. Michael was sure he was playing by the rules. And only I knew that in my bag were 2 thin bricks capable of stopping any of their steamrollers. On Friday, we arrived at the law firm of Orloff and Partners on time. The office was all glass and stone, with quiet carpets in the lobby and strict clocks on the walls. I went to the ladies' room to wash my hands, looked at myself in the mirror. A calm face, clear eyes, my hair not too perfect, just as it should be. In the hallway, Daniel helped me with my coat and nodded at my bag. Documents in place? In place. Ready. Ready. We walked down the corridor. A secretary smiled. They're waiting for you in conference room number 3. Through the frosted glass, silhouettes flickered. Amelia in her impeccable blazer, Michael next to her at the table. And a third, a thin man, must be their lawyer. I gripped my bag tighter so my hand wouldn't tremble on the doorknob, and thought suddenly very calmly, now they will see not the woman for whom they prepared cages and a schedule. Now they will see me. Daniel gave a barely perceptible nod, and I reached for the doorknob. The conference room was long, with frosted glass and a gray table on which a thick folder already lay. Amelia stood up. Her smile was even like in a photograph. Michael nodded curtly. Next to him, a thin man in a gray tie. Mr. Adler. I sat down, folded my hands so they wouldn't give away my tremor. I placed my bag next to me so the zipper was facing me. So, Adler began, Michael and Amelia are petitioning for guardianship. This will allow for the prompt resolution of financial, medical, and housing issues. The procedure is simple. He pushed the documents towards me. Daniel calmly said, "We'll review them if you don't mind." And he was already flipping through the pages, making a mark with his fingernail, asking in an even voice, "This is a full financial disposition without any accountability. This is the right to dispose of housing without the consent of the ward. This is the absence of a clear mechanism for revoking guardianship upon recovery of capacity. Is that correct?" Adler's jaw twitched. "This is standard, for the family's convenience." "For whose convenience?" I asked and caught Michael's gaze on me, stubborn, closed. Amelia leaned forward, her voice oily. "Eleanor, believe me, this will take a weight off your shoulders. We'll take care of everything." I took a breath. It was time. "Then I'd like to clarify a couple of points," I said and carefully took a thin folder out of my bag. "This week, I set up an irrevocable trust for my property. The apartment, the accounts, the savings have been transferred to the trust. I receive monthly payments. The rest is managed by a trustee according to the terms of the agreement. Third-party access to the assets is excluded." The pause was audible. Adler raised his eyebrows. Amelia turned pale. Michael looked at her in confusion. "How is it excluded?" he asked, as if he had heard the word for the first time. "Just like that," Daniel replied, and without raising his voice, he placed another sheet of paper next to it. "And this is the report from Dr. Irene Chan. A full examination. Eleanor is competent. No guardianship is required. The doctor is prepared to confirm this in court." Amelia's fingers trembled. She tried to smile. "But you said yourself." The confusion, the forgetfulness, yesterday's plates, the receipts. "A game," I said quietly. "I was playing the part you wanted to see, to understand why you needed it. Now I understand." Adler hastily flipped through our papers, grimaced. "Under these circumstances, I see no point in a guardianship petition. There is no object of management, no medical grounds. To continue would be risky. Daniel looked up. And one more detail. Eleanor recorded your conversation yesterday where you, Michael, explicitly say, "If you don't agree, we will be forced to." Pressure and intimidation are not the best backdrop for care. I would stop if I were you. Michael jumped up. This is a setup. Mom, how could you? His voice cracked like a teenager's. He clenched his fists. Michael, I was defending myself, I said. From someone else's initiative in my life. You could have come to me with questions. You came with a solution. Amelia in a thin voice. Eleanor, think of Mia and Jacob. They need a calm grandmother. Nearby, under supervision. They need a grandmother who is respected, I replied. Not under supervision, but with the right to decide where she lives and how. Adler Drilly summed it up. The meeting is over. We have nothing more to discuss. We stood up. Amelia tried to hug me. I took a step back. Michael stood looking past me as if at an empty wall. His lips were trembling, but not from tears, from anger and shame. In the corridor I stopped, adjusted the strap of my bag, and suddenly felt that sticky feeling, as if I were being led by the hand across the street without being asked if I wanted to go, was gone. I was walking on my own. 6 months have passed. I live in a small house in an old neighborhood, a 10-minute walk from Daniel and Margarita's house. My garden is funny, cramped, but the apple tree in the spring smelled so good that for several evenings in a row, I had dinner on the porch and couldn't get enough of it. My documents are where they should be. The bills come on the same day. I put the kettle on and count my pills, not twice and not 0 times. Like all normal people. 1. Michael and I don't have an easy time talking. It's short without the old mom, not now. He comes on Saturdays, sometimes with Mia and Jacob. We sit on stools, eat pies, and talk about school and bicycles. I don't ask him why he didn't see the obvious then. He doesn't make excuses. We are both learning to talk again without third voices. Our boundaries are now simple and firm. No more of my money, no more we'll handle it without you. No more we'll be forced to. And he understands that. I can see it. I heard through the grapevine about Amelia. They divorced. She left as if she had never been there. Someone said there were investigations into her past work. Someone else that she had found a new field. I don't get involved in those conversations. There are things that cease to matter when you stop playing along with them. Sometimes, when my evening smells of apples and warm earth, Rita calls on video. She says I look like my old self again. Daniel and Margarita drop by, bringing either pies or a sign. Beware of the cat. We laugh because I don't have a cat, but I like the sign. And recently Mia asked, Grandma, what is guardianship? We were sitting on the steps. Jacob was having a race with pine cones below. I thought about it and said simply, it's when adults forget to ask another adult what they want and decide for them. You can't do that. She nodded seriously and went to help her brother. And that's my whole moral. Care without respect is not care. It's convenience. Kindness is not weakness, but you can't live by being a pushover either. You have to be able to say no in time and quietly. And if someone is in a great hurry to take responsibility for your life, then it's probably not about your life. I close the gate in the evening, hear the bolt click, and I think, loneliness is when no one needs you. And that's not my case. I have my garden, my Saturdays, my people, and the right to my own key to my own door. That's enough to live on, without making excuses and without looking back. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Write in the comments what you would have done in the main character's place. Your activity is important to me. Maybe this video will be seen by someone who needs it. Stay with us. There are more real-life stories ahead.